IVM.
This podcast is brought to you by India Water Portal, a globally visited website dedicated exclusively to stories, knowledge, information, and news on rural and urban water in India. Hello and welcome to Voices for Water. My guest today, Dr. Bhakti Devi, has over 30 years of experience in facilitating and implementing user-led, self-sufficient, on-site water schemes and water-sensitive neighborhoods. On-site water schemes and water-sensitive neighborhoods are basically designed to make the most judicious use of every drop that falls on that site. She recently accepted an invitation by Rishihood University to join them as Professor, Rashtraram School of Public Leadership and Co-Director Center for Water. Here, she's been designing a unique field-based Jal Fellowship Program. The program is aimed at creating district-based water leaders across 750 districts of India. Dr. Bhakti is also founder of two water impact platforms, Jal Smriti and Urban Water Doctor. You can get to know more about Jal Smriti at jalsmruti.org, at urbanwaterdoctor.com. Dr. Bhakti has worked across Australia, New Zealand and India in diverse functions across the value chain of the water system, planning, capacity building, design and operations. She's also the founder president of Water Resources Council of WICCI, which is the Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Dr. Bhakti also has a PhD in water management from the University of Western Sydney, Australia. Welcome to Voices for Water, Dr. Bhakti.
Thank you, Karthik. Thank you for this opportunity.
That's an extraordinary body of work over 30 years. It took me about 2 minutes to be able to articulate it.
Yes.
So completely honored, to have you on this show.
Welcome.
How are you doing? And where are you talking to us from?
I am right now based in Sonipat in the campus of Rishihood University. And I can't be doing better because it is this Jal Fellowship is really a fantastic opportunity and platform that I have got from the university to, exactly realize the vision and the mission for which I returned back to India after, spending nearly 25 years in Australia. So,
Wonderful.
Couldn't be better.
We will talk about that entire journey across Australia and India. But I wanted to start with exactly what you just mentioned, which is the Jal Fellowship Program. Tell us what it is about and what is the role that water leaders play in this?
So, Jal Fellowship, as you mentioned in the introduction, to put it very shortly, it's a 10-month long very action and field-based program. So, and it is done with the view to create these district-based, and the field and work and action will actually happen at the district where the participants or the fellows are located. So they can choose the district they want to work in. And we have to understand the significance of this program, apart from it being field-based, what is important is to understand why such a program has been created. Because you need to really look at the water issue right now that we are facing. And so to really sum it up, water crisis is not a technology problem because we have a lot of solutions around. It is not a financial problem. It is not that we don't have the money to spend on solving the problem because we have reached a point where people are willing to invest in the solutions. What it is, it's a very complex and multifaceted issue, which really has come to a point where the community or the water user, as I like to call, must be engaged and must take charge of whatever is within their control to design and implement the solutions or to co-design the solutions. Now, what happens is when you want the community to actually solve the problem, you need to have someone coordinating and facilitating that. So who's going to do that, right? So we trying to create these coordinators who will lead the community in facilitating and enabling the solutions by the community. Because we have really reached a point, especially in India and world over, where you can no longer be dependent on one single entity, that is the government agency, to solve it, because it is not fair. It is really stretched. Their capacities have been stretched. And the only way you can solve it sustainably is to do it at the level of the community. And with that premise, so therefore what I liked about Rishihood's university's vision is that they're not talking about finding a new technology. They're not looking at this problem to solve it through technology, but they're trying to solve it at a social level. It's a really socially engineered solution, which is exactly how we need to be thinking if we want to seriously solve the problem and at scale and urgently. Because it's doable only when you do it in this way, in a decentralized fashion, involving the people and creating people who can actually make this happen.
That's amazing. It's the age-old adage of giving someone fish versus showing them how to fish.
Yes, absolutely.
And you're equipping these leaders to eventually be self-sufficient in leading these initiatives.
Okay, so if the question is about what would they do at the end of the training? So the way we are equipping and designing the training is that there could be multiple pathways. Most importantly, what they're doing during the training, during the fellowship, is that they are engaging with their own community, the stakeholders, including the government, including the NGOs who are already working in this space, and making sure that they're co-designing some initiatives in a very tangible way. They'll start it off in a small way, and they'll take it further with the help of the collaboration so they become the facilitator of these collaborations at the ground level. So because it's such a high touch, and that they're getting so much contact with the stakeholders, whether it's government agencies, whether it's the community, because that's the way the curriculum is being designed, that actions they take is going to get them in touch with all these agencies over a sustained period of 10 months. So at the end of it, what happens is the community starts to trust them. Because during those 10 months, the kind of initiatives they would have taken will build trust within all the stakeholders, the entire value chain, even the solution providers they get in touch with. So there are local solution providers. At the end of it, what I like to say is that it is not, what they will do after or what kind of job they'll do. It will be like many jobs will be chasing them rather than them chasing the jobs. And they'll have the entire options of either going entrepreneur. They can become their own entrepreneurs. They could be absorbed within the local NGOs, local solution providers may, absorb them, local government agencies may. So there are many, many options that open up once you have had this type of training given to the fellows, and these fellows are from their own community. So it is easier and it makes sense for the community member to be empowered and trained and skilled in a very guided way, even though it's remote. Like I'll be sitting in the Rishihood campus, but we are also having a network of resource persons and mentors who will be making sure that these people across, as I said, across various districts, working towards a common mission in their own district with full guidance from the mentors.
It's amazing how you're preempting a future talent shortage, especially of experts we'll have in this space, which will become very, very, even more critical than what it is right now. Dr. Bhakti, the other thing that I mentioned, in the intro that I found very fascinating was water-sensitive neighborhoods. Tell us a little bit about what they are and what can they do to conserve water and to minimize the waste and maximize usage of available water.
Sure. So water sensitive, the whole idea of water sensitive is defined as when you are getting into designing a neighborhood or designing any urban development. Okay, whether it's a building form, it could be a commercial building, it could be a residential building, whether you're building even a street or a bridge, anything, any urban form, built form, when you build, the idea of water sensitive is become water conscious in two ways. One is to think about how the building this form, how will the local natural water cycle, as in the local rainfall, when it hits the ground, the way it flows before you build the bridge or after you build the bridge, how does it change? What will happen, right? Whether it's a building, any built form, when you build, what change will happen? How will my built form that I create going to impact that natural flow of water? Secondly, you take into account what is the water, what pressure or what demand will I be putting on the water system as a result during building the form as well as after the form has been built. So when you become aware and conscious of those two factors, what you will do, you will start to design things in a very different way. So design in a way that you have the least, you're not impacting the water in an adverse way. So because what happens is all these built forms are definitely going to have an impact, and they are all adverse impact. And I'll explain why it's an adverse impact. But then the good news is when you become conscious, you can also use the same design process to design out the problem. So because we are not sensitive to that aspect, what we tend to do in our built forms is that we build them and then think about, the issue that we have created as a result of the built form. But if you start to become sensitive about the water, so I'll tell you why is it an adverse impact as a result. So as soon as you build a hard surface, because most of the built forms are hard, and as soon as you build the hard surface, you have taken over the soft surface, you have cleared the vegetation, which is actually playing a very crucial part in sustaining the water resource that we have, right? And also creating a cooling effect, which also actually contributes to the rainfall patterns when it happens in a collective way. So you have already impacted in two ways: by removing, by making a hard surface, by preventing water to go down the ground, as well as the vegetation, that the kind of effect it has. And then what you're also doing is you're increasing the demand of water because of the fact that you're going to have a neighborhood which is going to have more people than it had before. You suddenly are going to require more water to be in that space and create more sewage or used water because of the fact that you build this. So now both these things are going to create an impact. Now, if I become water sensitive, what I will do is I will start thinking right from the design stage, how can I make sure that I am not introducing more soft surfaces, even though I may have to start off by clearing a few things, but can I reintroduce some vegetation? Can I introduce porous surfaces? So that is in the design way. And also, if I'm going to increase the pressure on the water demand, can I recycle the water, facilitate the design to actually capture the water and recycle it rather than just push it away and let someone else take care of it? So this thinking starts to come, and that is how then you start to design your neighborhood rather than the traditional way of just design and then think about water later. So that's what water sensitive neighborhood actually does.
It's amazing. Are there any examples of water sensitive neighborhoods in India?
Yes. In fact, what encouraged me to, because when I returned to India, this was my mission of, this is called decentralized and water sensitive neighborhoods. Like you're trying to become water sensitive at every scale, at the smallest scale you can. And what really encouraged me was the fact that I landed in Bangalore, actually. That was my first place I came. And in Bangalore itself, I found nearly 2 to 3 green real estate players who have been designing and building such, apartment complexes which are completely water self-sufficient. And they have been doing it. One of them has been doing it for the last 25 years. And they have competitively priced them, sold them in the market. But then what I'm saying is they have very successfully developed and designed these type of neighborhoods and complexes, which really encourage that this is already, the capacity to do this already exists. It's not that, we have never done it in India. And in fact, if you really go back to, before the British, changed the governance of the way water is managed, we have always managed water at a small scale, at a small neighborhood scale, and harvested rainwater. And if you look at all the cities, they all have a way of collecting, water in the local lakes and ponds. So this has been there. It's just that we need to revive by bringing back the consciousness of how water works in nature and working with it rather than against it.
As we've gone through this series, I was speaking to experts like you. There are 2 recurring themes. One is very clearly how we were in a much, much better place. We understood our water before the British came up. And the second part is what you were saying about cities like Bangalore. And, of all the stories, I think the story that scares me personally as a citizen the most is where most cities will be in, say, 10, 15 years, not in the distant future, like in our own lifetime, as far as water is concerned, which, wants me to ask you about sustainable cities, right? What can we or the government do to make our cities more water sustainable? So
it is very true that cities tend to put a lot of pressure on the water resources simply because of the fact that more people are being housed in a small area. And the population, and also it's a rising population. There's no control or regulation on how to check that growth. So, and the growth is intended and desired for economic, well-being, etc. So, which is fine. But then once you have an intention of creating that growth in population and economic activities, then you also need to make room for the fact that population needs to be serviced with the water, with the sanitation services. So if you cannot make room, if you can make room for housing the industries and the housing residential colonies. But if you do not want to make room or plan for the services that will be needed to support that, then you're not doing the right thing, because that is exactly what's happening. Even though it sounds so common sense, but every city is struggling because the municipal agency that plans for the growth and the water utility that has to support the growth, they are not in sync for whatever reason. It's a large, complex thing. But then, the very least, they have to first start to address that issue at the planning stage. That has to happen first. Without that, you cannot hope to fix things, after you've damaged it. It's very, very hard. And that's what examples of cities like Bangalore, within 3 decades, just 3 decades it has taken to completely turn the city from city of gardens, just 70% covered with vegetation, trees, and thousands of, many, many lakes, to completely gone. They're all gone. And we knew it is not that this has happened suddenly. It was an intended, planned growth to have IT parks located there. What do you expect when IT parks will come? Of course, So what I'm saying is, this planning has to happen, especially when you're strategically wanting a city to become an IT hub. Then you also have to think about how will you support them for the basic services, water, waste, solid waste management. These are the basic essential services you have to plan for at the same time. You cannot leave it for later. Now, what has happened is, in terms of making the sustainable city, the approach that I'm trying to promote and propagate, because the things are quite out of hand for what we can do as community can do to change the way the water governance is happening. I mean, that's a separate battle. As a water professional, I'm kind of contributing to. However, but we cannot wait for those things to change But then there are lots and lots of things, a lot of potential for the community to act as well. That is where I tend to focus my efforts on. That, because of the fact that communities have, there is potential for them to take charge of the area, of the building, of the premise that they are in control and make the most of it. That is the way forward. Because, the reality is that government, despite, they are trying, but then the resources are stretched. So let us acknowledge that, for government to, in fact, it is our turn now to support the government, because it is completely, and the fact that decentralized solutions are best done at the level of people, community who are using water within small groups. So it can range, the decentralized solution when I'm talking about, it can range from as small as a household level, like a single detached bungalow level, to a complex, which is, it could be a university complex or a residential complex, managing its own water. Right from the design stage is the ideal way to go. And that is how, as you start building these small scale systems, community starts to become aware and starts to make these things. That's how the city will ultimately become livable and sustainable. Because at every scale, you're trying to make sure that you're not causing the problem, but you're becoming solution to the problem. That is the approach that is going to make the city sustainable. That's a realistic way of going forward.
Right. And to think that we missed that bus of planning cities. And
yes.
From here on, it is always going to be an uphill battle.
Absolutely.
I think that's what makes what you're doing with the communities even more critical. I think. But, talking about that, Dr. Bhakti, you're also the founder of Jal Fellowship, which is a water impact platform, like we spoke about. Among other things that you do, one thing I found fascinating is that you conduct water literacy sessions for city residents. What are these sessions, and more importantly, what inspired you to do this?
So maybe I'll answer the last question first. The inspiration, as I said, has come from the fact, by working in this sector, water sector, particularly, I have been working at a very cutting edge thinking, of water. How do you think of future of water? In Australia being a very dry continent, and they have been very proactive. And I was very fortunate to actually work with groups who are into the state of the art, right? So that allowed me to, initially, because that all those groups have been helping organizations, utilities, municipalities to think in terms of very proactively, sustainably. And then I also got the opportunity to actually lead this type of approach, this new type of approach for a city of Sydney. For the city of Sydney, they wanted to, the mayor of the city of Sydney, being very bold and green, had got re-elected with the mandate that they will create these small-scale systems, even though municipality does not have a brief for water services. So that was the mandate, and that job of leading the city, I had the privilege of getting selected for leading that plan. And so it was a new, very, very new thing, because I had always helped the agencies from outside, but not from the inside, actually. And also someone saying that we want to do at an entire city scale, because we were helping to show demonstration plants and demonstration schemes. But here was City of Sydney saying we want to do the entire, tell us the possibility of decentralized. That's what they were saying, and show us what we can do. And then we want to be committing to enable that. And that was very exciting for me and also very new. So once I started working from the inside the municipality, I had much more access to the community, to the, because that's what municipality does. It has direct connect with the community. And what I saw unfold during my 4-year tenure, because all those ideas, I was trying to run it past the municipality, and then And of course, municipalities the leadership had given me the full support and the freedom to explore and identify all the opportunities. But also they rose up to the occasion of, actually supporting it in a real way, not just, lip service. And what that did was it created a number of amazing opportunities within the city. And that I got very smitten by, almost smitten by, because I did not expect so much can be done when you have the right vision and the political will, and someone who can, who has the understanding to guide it. And that really and what it taught me is that the potential for decentralized is amazing. And it works best at the community level. That's another thing I took away from that experience I had in City of Sydney. And that is the key inspiration with which I returned to India. And because I felt that, we are having a crisis, but then there is a lot you can do at a community level, which there's not many people who are advocating. We need more people advocating. And that is the idea that, so when you say water literacy, what it means is making people aware of the power they have of solving the water for themselves. And that is because we are not aware of that power, we are water illiterate, because we do not. And this water illiteracy, I call it that it is a system-bred illiteracy, because it is not out of that we want to be illiterate. The way the entire system, the water and the sewage management system is designed, it has been designed to keep you worry-free. Okay, they don't want you to worry about it. That was the intention of the design. But what we have ended up happening is we have become disconnected. We do not understand water except by opening the tap and the water comes. We do not know before it, we do not know after it. We don't even know how much water we are using and how much is going away. Or we are just completely in a bubble. And it's not just in India, everywhere around the world, water is one of the least innovated space, water utility, because they have tended to kept it in a monopoly so that it is taken care of. But then that has worked against it, because innovation has been no innovation over the last 100 years in the water utility space. So because of that, recognizing that as one of the causes, that is why community is unable to engage with the problem, nor is it able to engage with the solution, because they don't even understand the problem. And even if they wanted to do something, they have no idea where to start. So that was the premise for which, the whole water literacy. Then water literacy is not just becoming aware of that power that you have, but also provide the tools that you can use to enable those solutions for yourself. And that became the mission for Jal Smriti that I created, is to how can we create tools to give to whether it's an individual, a citizen, or a community, or a campus. It could be a company, it could be a city, even at a city level. So trying to make these tools so that everyone can try to solve the problem within the boundary of their own control and influence. That is a very simple, and that's exactly what we need. If we can do more and more of it, we will start to see things change. And so the whole idea is to recognize that power that we all have within ourselves to solve for water, and not look to someone else doing it.
Got it. Dr. Bhakti, you spoke about water literacy, and you've seen communities across the world, right? And compared to that, how do you look at water literacy among citizens in India? And I probably am among those people who don't know much about where my water comes in or where it goes into, right? How far are we from any decent level of literacy, and how do we compare to other countries you've seen?
So as I said, you will be surprised that water system all across the world in every city is exactly the same model. Take water from a source far away from the city, extract it, use it, and dump it. Extract, use, dump. And then they create a network of pipes so that it becomes easy. As the city grows, you can just extend the pipe and supply to the new growth. So it was a very simple idea. It is not to say the intention was to make us all illiterate. That was not the intent. Intention was how can we service water in an economic way, in an efficient way. So the whole engineering was geared towards efficiency and effectiveness. Like, make it affordable and make it efficient. So that what it is, and then that all that infrastructure is sunk for 100 years. And now whenever a new growth happens or and also the second thing we did is all across the world, water is managed by one entity, one single monopoly entity. So these two things put together. And third thing is, and the entire staff, if you find, they're mostly engineers. So it's a monodiscipline. And on top of that, you won't be surprised if it's male dominated as well. So, you take all the things together and you have a perfect recipe for no innovation, keeping yourself, just taking no risk and just staying where you are. Why should I change? Everything is fine. I'm a monopoly. No, I have no competition. So there was nothing for them to get, innovative. And also, even when you see the change in your face, climate change is happening, everything is happening, even though you recognize the change, but you have lost that muscle to actually pivot or to do something different. And that is what that has also done as an unintended consequences. Community all across the cities in the world are as water illiterate as any other city. So there is nothing like, we are more literate or they are more. No, it is water illiteracy is a worldwide rampant disease, which we are all caught into. Awareness will bring you out of it. That's all you need. You just need to become aware that we are illiterate. And you also become aware that we have the power to come out of this and we can do it. That's all it needs.
Right. That inertia you're talking about is just amazing, right? We know it's going to end in disaster, yet we won't change a single thing about it. But I guess it all starts with knowing that we don't know.
Yes. And things are now starting to move with the community also kind of, putting the pressure on, talking about lack of innovation, etc. So many utilities have started to turn around, but it's a very difficult process because I've also been within a largest utility in Australia is Sydney Water, and I've worked within Sydney Water to help them with their creating a new innovative strategy. And I saw firsthand that, it is a Titanic. And now they're moving. They're very much moving steadily in the right direction. But it takes a lot of effort, time, and energy to make that shift. And it is happening. But what I'm saying is if the community also started to become equally literate, it makes it easy for the utility to actually do their job. It becomes much, much easy when community is very aware and supportive of these new ways and also taking responsibility. As communities start taking responsibility of their share of water management, it makes it much, much easier for the utilities to do the right thing and turn around and away from the old way of doing things.
Right. Talking about communities, I want to go back to what you were talking about just about 5 minutes back. And to put this in perspective, I'm talking about your work in Sydney. You authored the Decentralized Water Master Plan for the city of Sydney. Tell us a little bit about what this is. And I was feeling really jealous when you said how you were smitten by the process and how everyone sort of worked together.
Yeah.
And can something like this be recreated and implemented in an Indian city? Like, what do you think?
Absolutely. As I said, when I reflected on that success, it's a great success story. And when I reflect on, so Decentralized Water Master Plan, basically what it basically helped the city. I did it on behalf of the city. So what we did was that we were showing what are the different water sources that as a municipality has access to. So for example, rainwater. It falls on the catchment. So you can definitely, it is within your control how through a policy you can get more rainwater harvesting happening at a private level. But what can city also do to make community scale stormwater harvesting, which is the water running off the roads? Okay, so roof water harvesting is the capturing the water from the roofs, but then the water is also running off the bridges and the roads and the flyovers, all those hard surfaces, which again the city of Sydney as a municipality agency has control of, because it has a responsibility for stormwater management. So what they do right now, they were traditionally doing is just letting the water run through the drains and out to the river or the ocean, wherever it's discharging. But now with the new way of thinking, how can you capture some of that stormwater and treat it and use it for non-potable uses? How can, there are sewage pipes running through the city. Can we mine? We call it sewer mining. Can we mine the sewage from, because it's water. It's just black color water, but it's still water. It's got contaminants in it. And as I said, there are plenty of technology solutions now which can remove those contaminants. So can we mine that sewer and create a recycle water scheme close to the source and close to the where the water is needed, right? So looking at these small scales, mapping all the sources, mapping the opportunities to supply, so that you are having the optimal opportunities identified in a master plan. What that does is it invites, a city was not saying we will do it all. City was saying, here is the opportunity. The decentralized water master plan was saying, here is the potential for decentralized water schemes to be created across the city. Now we invite either private property owners or developers or the Sydney Water to come and collaborate and make this happen. And City of Sydney will be happy to collaborate. So now that immediately opens up so many opportunities, and it has created many private developers and builders to also take up those schemes and do it. So given that the approach, yes, it is possible. What made it happen was the political will that we want to do it, and we can do it. That was first thing that my job was to demonstrate that it is possible. What is possible, we can demonstrate that, and willingness to be able to say that we want to do it. And also the fact that you can have that commitment to do sustainable things. So in the case of India, what I have chosen to do is that I'm engaging with cities. For example, Jal Smriti has created a water positive city program where we engage with the city to show them through a rapid assessment where are the opportunities they could take very easily using their own existing power, that they don't have to do anything radical. So that is, we have the program, but we cannot rely only on the city scale program. So we have also designed in Jal Smriti programs for campuses. So what can a campus do to make it self-sufficient and water sensitive? What can the apartment communities do? So we have created these programs to guide people at different levels, because it is possible to solve for water at different scale by the owners of the property and by the users of water in that property.
As you talk about these things, Dr. Bhakti, whether it is what communities are doing, whether it is planning of cities or whether it is literacy also, I think the role of data becomes extremely critical, isn't it? I come from an industry where I know that only what gets measured gets managed. In your opinion, how can data help in the process of creating, water sustainable cities? And are there any lessons you picked up from, your journey and experience in other sectors also, in other countries also?
So definitely, one thing I would say is that you don't have to wait for data before you act. That is something, we should be very aware of. That sometimes I find people saying that, we don't have data and let's focus on collecting the data. That's not the way I believe we have to go. Because yes, data is important, data is useful, but do we wait for the data? Do we focus on only collecting the data? Because even data collection is quite a value exchange process. Are you giving something of value to receive the data that you want to get, right? So it's very important that you become, so the idea is to first act. Start doing something, and the data, you will have a way of collecting the data. Because think of how can you provide value before you start collecting the data. And you collect, the ideal way to collect data is while providing value. You cannot say that I will wait for the data to be collected and then think what to do. Because it's a complex problem. and not a complicated problem. A complicated problem has a straight answer. Give me the data and I'll give you a straight answer. But a complex problem requires you to feel your way. You feel your way and then something emerges, and that's data. That what emerges cannot emerge unless you start feeling your way without the data. Start acting and then look at the data. Then you have more ways of getting more data also and finding clearer way. So because of that, many times we miss this thing about water is a complex problem. And the way to handle complex problem is to deal with the uncertainty, to be comfortable with the uncertainty even while we are designing the solutions. So you may have to start, you can start at a small scale, but start somewhere instead of waiting for the data to happen. That is my main approach when we are creating our programs, is to we want to get data, and of course more things will as we start doing things, that will happen. And the other way of talking about learning from other sectors or new ways of doing things, one thing is this whole blockchain is a fascinating technology, and I don't know exactly how we could use it, but because it is what I understand about blockchain is it's a very useful way of tracing the path and the journey and making people accountable. So if you want to make people accountable, I don't know how, but I feel that maybe blockchain has that potential to put it within a water system so that everyone and everything is accounted for in terms of when you're providing the water service. So I think definitely, and there are many sectors, as you were saying, advertising, marketing, and they use, once you start getting data, there's a lot of insights you get, and that allows you to do more things in a better way. That's of course there. That's now it's such a big industry, the whole data analytics. It's nothing new. But I think where we get stuck is wait for data, and I don't believe that's the way to go.
I absolutely love your worldview on this, and fascinated by how wide you're thinking, right? Like, I mean, we work very closely with the business of crypto and blockchain,
Right.
and I can see what you mean. Like blockchain, essentially is building an environment of trust where you're not leaving it to human judgment or human malpractice, where you can't duplicate a certain chain of data. And I can see how, from an accountability perspective, that'll help what we're talking about. Dr. Bhakti, we usually end the episode, by asking our expert guests, if you have to leave the audience, someone who's listening to this episode, with that one action point, one action that all of us can take as individuals to make our cities and neighborhoods more water secure, what should that be?
I will be very opportunistic, and I'm going to say that if you can choose any of these actions, I'm going to just say. So find a person in your district to sponsor for Jal Fellowship, or point them to participating, and someone who you believe has that passion and the leadership to, you don't have to be an engineer or a scientist. We are taking people from all disciplines. So you point them to that Jal Fellowship Program so that they join it. And the second thing you could do is to actually support them, because this is it's not a funded program at the moment. We are trying to make sure that good students get scholarships, and because people who deserving participants, applicants get scholarship. But we need support from the community. So sponsor a few students, a few fellows. And so these are the two things, because we are building a future and we are trying to solve the problem by creating that capacity within the district. So it's going to solve the problem for your own district. So go ahead and learn more about Jal Fellowship Program and promote that program to as many people as you can.
Wonderful. Very, very, very actionable. And we'll ensure that, in the show notes, we link the Jal Fellowship Program for whoever is listening to understand more about this, so you can nominate. Dr. Bhakti, thank you so much for sharing your amazing knowledge with us.
My pleasure. And it's thank you for the opportunity, because it's very important that the work that we are doing, that the thinking that we are sharing has to be promoted, and these programs can definitely help. Thanks a lot.
Good luck in your journey. Thank you.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Storytellers and Storytellers, Vineet speaks with drum prodigy Darshan Doshi about helping young Indian drummers take to the world stage. The Simplified Gang delves into the unfortunate financial crisis in Sri Lanka. On Smarter with Sid, Siddharth observes how Lata Mangeshkar was snubbed I tell you, out of memoriam mentions in both the Grammys and the Oscars. This is an absolute disgrace. And on the Life Manifestos, Arena explains how to beat procrastination and show up for yourself. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you enjoyed this show or any of our other shows for that matter, do please tell a friend. Also, don't forget to rate us on any of the platforms you're listening to us on. You can check us out on YouTube as well. On ivmpodcast.com/YouTube, we have a list of all of our YouTube channels. Do check out if your favorite show is available as full video. We are also doing a small listener survey to better understand how you respond to our shows and advertising on the network. We'd really appreciate it if you could spare a few minutes to fill it out. It helps us build better shows for you. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors for this week, SBI Life Insurance, India Water Portal, and Jupiter, a digital banking app. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Ladies, I'm sure you will relate to it if I say that we are constantly busy with work, studies, cooking, and what not. And amidst all of this, we often forget an important element that needs our desperate attention: finance. So here we are, bringing to you SBI Life presents A Sip of Finance, a women-exclusive podcast where we will teach you how to manage personal finances in a simple and straightforward way with your host, Priyanka Acharya, a finance expert who's been in the industry for 14 plus years. And not just in English, but in 7 more languages. So tune in every Tuesday for fresh episodes on the IVM Podcast Network and all major podcast streaming platforms.